Okay, practical tips in grief. Here's some things that you can kind of talk to them about. I mentioned already, understand triggers. Things like songs and movies. This isn't on here, but you can add it. Understanding the role of triggers is super important, and that they're pervasive everywhere, especially if any significant loss is going to come with it, triggers everywhere. Like I said, songs, movies, pop culture, conversations in a group setting. Before my husband died, we had a couples group that we were, there's us and 2 other couples that would get together. In fact, today after I'm hanging out with them, they very graciously still want me to be a part of the couples group, even though I'm not a couple anymore, and that's okay. So being aware of like how the dynamics work. In the beginning, I was asking myself, how do I feel when I'm around a group of couples? I'm missing my partner. I'm missing my best friend, my lover. He was my dude. He was my backup. I backed him up. He's a lot of things to me. And so there's triggers everywhere. Another practical thing is cry. People don't like that one because some people are okay with it. That's great. But other people, I've had to talk to them about crying does not mean you're weak. Crying does not mean that you're pathetic. Crying does not mean that it doesn't equal self-pity. It doesn't mean that you are broken, devastated, or unfixable. There's nothing to fix. Crying is simply an expression of grief. And the desire or the impulse to cry is evidence of the depth of relationship that you had with this person or this thing. Again, it could be a perceived connection in the case of, say, somebody that you didn't think that the person might be very close to, but it's how they represent that connection in that person's mind. Other things: pray, meditate, journal, exercise patience and more patience. Use expressive art. Down here, I have a number of little pieces. My daughter is an art major, and we, as a family, we really dove into artistic expression. We did that before my husband died as a family, and we definitely dove into it even more so after he died. And some of these pieces up here, you can come up and look at them later. You can interpret them however you want. It was just me having fun with paint on paper, as well as my daughter. And just being able to just have an artistic, expressive outlet that does not use words. I understand, like within session, it may not be as practical to use paints, but you can use crayons. I've used crayons with people, markers. I like crayons better because crayons have more blendability, and so there's a more fluidity to what that looks like versus markers. Of course, there's some blending markers out there, but crayons are less messy. And adults actually do like to do stuff that would normally be thought of as play therapy that you do with kids. I have a sand tray in my office, and I have definitely had adults use the little figurines and put the figurines in the sand tray and do some expressive kind of things with that too. So think outside the box sometimes and see what you can come up with. Again, adjust expectations. Participate in mourning rituals. Things like memorials or releasing exercises. So I mentioned that we just redid my bathroom, and the floors were down to the concrete. And I got inspired to do a little mural on the floor in the bathroom. That's where my husband died. And I did a tree, and I put a verse from Thessalonians, the one that says that we don't grieve as those who have no hope. And that, and I knew it was going to get covered up with flooring, and it is. Now it's covered up, but that's okay. And then my daughter did another one, off to the side. And I found it to be very therapeutic and comforting. And we left a mark there. Someday that won't be our house, and people won't know it's there, but I do. and it felt very like honoring, like that was like another form of expression. Choose process partners wisely. Not everybody's going to be able to listen, to process. So when you work with people, talk to them about who's a good person and how to assess who's a good person. And I try really hard not to take things personally, because you know what? This is my journey. This is my story. This is my process. It's not somebody else's. and they have their own lives. So I'm very careful to not overburden my friends with too much of my stuff, because it's not fair. I am a little bit more needy in this phase of my life, and a lot of my friends have been very gracious to be patient with me. But you know, you want to make sure that you help guide your people to identify, like, okay, if you have, you know, say you have a conversation with somebody and it doesn't go the way that you want, all right, let's talk about how did that make you feel? You know, what happened? What were you expecting? Let's talk about your disappointments. You know, can you find someone else? Or what about a conversation with somebody that did go well? What was it about that conversation and that exchange that was, you know, helpful to you and meaningful, so that you can help them to assess the differences, because everybody's got their own stuff, you know, and it's okay. Other people's lives do go on, and that's hard for the grieving person. And they know it up here, but it's like they're so hurting. It's like, God, like why is the world still going? You know, don't you know what just happened to me? Well, yeah, but that's what happens, you know, it still keeps going. Take care of yourself. So talk about self-care, learning how to say no more, and having downtime. A spiritual practice that I've been doing now for 6 years that I've just recently adjusted. I was going down to Corona del Mar, has a beautiful beach, and there's if those of you are familiar, there's Pirates Cove. Back in the day, there's a lot of baptisms. Actually, when I was in youth ministry here, Eric Hurd, who is the youth pastor, he baptized me down at Pirates Cove, which was pretty awesome. And so I go down there. I was going every other Friday. Now I've stuck it on my calendar for every Friday. So I go down there for 3 hours. You know what, you guys, we live in paradise. People come here to vacation. I'm like, are you kidding me? That Pacific Ocean is not gonna like enjoy itself. I need to go down there and enjoy it. So I've been doing that, and this is something that God said, come away with me. Come and spend time with me. So encourage people to do stuff like that, you know, like whenever possible. My schedule affords me that I can kind of do that, so I enjoy doing that. Delegate, ask for help is important. Don't try to do everything on your own. This is a little bit of a challenging one though, so be aware, like even as, like I've got so many projects at home, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be asking for help. It's a good thing I know people like in like different churches, so that I'm like, okay, let me talk to this group of people. This is what I need help with, and then so I don't overburden you. And then I'm going to go to this group of people, and this is what I need help with. So it's kind of hard sometimes for the grieving person to get organized. So sometimes within therapy or the counseling session, that's a great time to spend that time to help them get organized. I did that one of the times in one of my sessions with my therapist. And that gave me a little bit of a roadmap. It helped me kind of get my arms around stuff to go, okay, from a practical standpoint, this is what needs to happen.